Recording is on.
Okay, thank you guys for coming to today's webinar, and I'm very excited for today because today we are hosting Claudio Corrao. Welcome, Claudio. And Claudio is a leadership and team performance coach, and today he will share his thoughts on the dream jobs and how to get them, which is I think a holy grail that's of the recruitment and recruitment industry, and I think all of us are interested in how to spot and catch the dream job. So I'm very excited for this conversation, and thank you so much, Claudio, for accepting the invitation.
No, thank you. I'm very excited indeed, and I wanna welcome as well, and thank to our listeners for dedicating their time in here. I appreciate that.
Great. Okay, Claudio. So first, please tell us what is your personal story. First,
Yes.
Why did you decide to get down to this topic? It's a monstrous problem, right? Dream jobs is it's a very complex problem. So please tell us a little bit about what is your story.
Well, yes, be very happy about that. First of all, I'd like to say that my story is kind of a little bit unconventional. Why is that? First of all, I'm originally from Italy, from Sicily. However, I have not lived in Italy in the last 8 years. I have traveled around in Australia, lived there for like 4 years, then I moved to Sweden. And now, I've been living in the Netherlands in the last 2.5 years. And surely deciding what to do in my life was like a very big topic for me. And it's always like a really, really hard to focus and trying to understand what is like your mission, or like how you want to really bring value to others. And what I realized, like along my educational background as well, and my educational journey and career as well, I realize how very little it is actually put into, how very little actually educators pay attention into that, into like what is self-development, personal development, getting a grip on our strength, weaknesses, and as a consequence, what is like our vision, or like what direction we're going to. And what happened is that while I was in Australia about 6 years ago, I was managing a restaurant belonging to a pretty large company there. And you start having some the first time managing experience, and you get to like bring people together. You start understanding how important it is actually value like engagement and involvement, motivation, and trying to become a leader. And I gotta say that it's extremely hard. It's really, really beyond imagination. However, that was exactly what brought me to getting into like leadership and self-development. And yes, now I am an entrepreneur. I have my own, I'm a solopreneur actually right now, and I help founders and team leaders into develop themselves to actually develop even better soft skills, people skills. Because what happens is that very often I deal with engineers or software developers or marketers that have been into, like the technical part of the job for 5-6 years, but because they became so good in what they do, for the first time they're actually experiencing management, and they realize how hard it is. You need a completely different set of skills, and it has a lot to do also with the culture that you want to create.
Actually, your work would be invaluable in academia, I think, because actually this is no secret, that in academia, unlike in industry, people who get promoted to managemental positions are the best specialists. So if you have the best academic record, that's when you get promoted. So typically, your soft skills and your management skills are not a part of the equation when it comes to giving tenure positions to people. and that comes at the cost of mental health of everyone around sometimes, because sometimes, you know, like, and I think many PIs are even aware that they would actually need such a training, but they are not, it's a hard decision for them to ask for help. So I think
Right.
it should be definitely more leadership training in academia. So I think, yeah, maybe one day, who knows? Maybe one day we see you lecturing at Radboud to Radboud professors. That will be super good if you could.
I would love that. Here's the problem. At the end of the day, leadership is nothing else than a skill. It is a skill like learning, speaking another language. But for somehow, when we talk about leadership to people, they take it personally. Uh, Soft skills, it is a skill. So it's something that is learnable, it is trainable, and it has nothing to do with who you are. Instead, there is a lot of ego in between. Like, shall I get a training? I'm already a manager. You know, like, this is like a very wrong approach. And as you said, it goes at the end, like it goes like to the mental health of the people that actually are under, or at least subordinated to the leader. Um, Very often, I see people gaining certain position, believing that that is like their dream job, or that is like the career that goes for them, while actually they ended up being having bigger responsibility, but with them they feel like they're having bigger chains as well. So here's again, it's really important to understand which game we want to play, and which type of rules as well. For example, talking about job, okay, I guess that most of our listeners here are PhD or PhD candidates, and I guess that a lot of you would like to continue your career towards academia and research.
Maybe guys, like, could you guys type in the chat what stage you are?
I'm very curious actually to see, to understand more. What is like your goal, for example?
I think I'll start. I'm just graduating from PhD. Yeah. Okay. So Marcos is the same stage as me.
Students, okay.
Hussein is a PhD student.
Yeah,
And Murali, you're a postdoc, right? Okay. Yeah.
complete PhD.
Cool.
Very well.
So it's actually academic community. Okay.
Fantastic. Very well. Well, and here is the thing. We had a conversation previously with Natalia, saying how like RD could be actually finding a vacancy within the research environment. Very often, I think there's like a lot of there's like a high percentage of looking for industry job. There we go. So a lot of PhD candidates ended up not working in academia, and they just go for corporate startup and so on. So I guess that it must be feeling very frustrating when you dedicate so much time, money, energy, and any of your resource towards a goal, and then you have to pivot towards something else. It must be like a really hard. And to be honest, I did some research about that, and what I realized is the approach of the industry and the approach of the corporate world towards PhD. It's quite interesting to see in their job description how sometimes they actually value certain skills like stakeholder management, on how to handle political relationships within the organization and outside the organization. So they have this sort of bias, like cognitive bias, that when somebody comes from an academia environment, doesn't have those skills. This is actually something that I found through some of the research that I did. Is like one of the main components that they mistrust a little bit, or they probably would prefer somebody coming from the corporate as well. While I personally believe it's absolutely wrong, because like somebody with a PhD is, I mean, has so much knowledge, and the way that you guys can solve problems is absolutely outstanding, outstanding. And at this point, I understand how hard it is competition, especially in this period where it is actually hard to even networking. It is hard to go to like a business event. So you can't actually put yourself out there, and all you do is looking at the screen all day, scrolling thousands of job description, positions, send a CV. And if you're lucky, you probably receive like just the 5% of your CV that you've been submitted gets a response. And you must feel very, it must give like a lot of anxiety, must feel very stressful. And I do understand that because I've been through this process myself as well. Like, being probably broke a few years back, and you see every day cost money that we cannot afford. So here is some tip that I want to give. I want to do a premise. Like I don't put myself out here like a guru or somebody that is gonna say, "Hey, with these tips, you're gonna find a job in a week." No, I really want to be humble on that, because we can control only the things that we can control, and we cannot control the reaction and emotions of who is going to be in the human resource handling your resume. Of course, we have zero control on that, but we at least can try to increase our chances for winning. And here's the thing: what I see like on LinkedIn is how everyone pays so much attention in creating this perfect LinkedIn page. So when we actually go out there and visiting other profile, it can feel like a lot of pressure, I believe. And it can feel like we should put ourselves certain expectations, like I should have this type of experience, this type of skills, this type of that, that, and that. Because if I don't, I'm not going to succeed. I'm not going to get a job. Now, this is, I believe, one of the worst way of approaching job hunting, because it just drives you crazy. Just you start building up expectations, and literally with it, you start building up monster in your mind. While what is really important is, in terms of self-development, do not compare yourself with the market and with what is out there, and stop competing and start understanding. But maybe already you do that, which is awesome. I just want to make sure that it's a good reminder. I believe is a good reminder to really understand what value you want to bring in the society, and like aside from your PhD and from your paper and from your skills, what is that really makes you unique, and in which way you actually want to contribute. Because at the end of the day, it is absolutely, we don't necessarily need to be better, but we need to be different to survival, let's say, in this case. And we can only be different by understanding what are our strengths and our weaknesses. And yeah, that's mainly the way. Other than that, um, what I want to say is that we usually, well, as I was actually talking with Natalia before, there is like this sort of bias, usually coming from the United States, in between who is an employee and who is like an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
And they make this sort of difference, distinction about like what is success, which is success is absolutely relative to the person. While the distinction that I would like to bring in here, to have a better clue, a better direction where to go, is the distinction between having a job, a career, or a mission, a calling. Now, I know that it might sound fluffy, said in this way, but I'm just gonna proceed a little bit to give a in-depth explanation. That like with job is just something that is gonna pay the bill. That's it. It's not going to bring anything else than that. It's not sustainable. It's going to bring you in a loop of frustration. it is okay to get a job if we really need it, but most probably is not actually the direction that we want to go. While a career is already like you're in a better position because it makes use of your skills. It will lift you upward, but still, probably the goals that you're going to achieve are usually of extrinsic nature. It can be because of money, it can be because of better life quality, it can be because of status, but it's not talking to your soul, let's say. Well, when we talk about a mission, we go a little bit deeper in our personality. So it's more about, as I said before, which causes are you fighting for? Is it something that you really want to improve in this society? Is that a problem? Is it something that you really feel as a more personal? Yes.
I have a question for you then.
Yeah.
It's always bugging me. Is actually a mission something that everyone needs or only some people need? Because what I also experience while talking to PhDs and other intelligent people out there who are looking for jobs is that there is the whole spectrum of between people who are very close to their job, like mentally, so they really identify to very high extent with what they do, and they really want to express themselves by what they do. And it's like, if you offend what, like, if you have a critics about what they do, it's like they feel offended personally. Like
Okay.
if a painter, if you tell a painter, I don't really like this picture, they will be really personally offended. And
Right.
so this is like this artist type, and I think a lot of scientists are artists in a way. If their every of their research project is their baby, and it's really they really feel very territorial about it, and very very personal about it. And there are also people who are much more detached from what they do, and they actually much more willing to just sell their time for money and be in safe environment. And for them, 8 hours a day they have to sleep, 8 hours a day they have to work, and the remaining 8 hours is their real life for them. And this actually, I see that there is the whole spectrum. So I always like wonder, is it that everyone out there actually needs a personal mission, or maybe this is just true about some percentage of people?
That's a very interesting question. It's about thinking what it fulfills you. I mean, it's like the idea of success that we have. It doesn't have to be related to money or career. Again, this is something that comes mainly from the United States, all that. But I can feel that I reach my success and I'm living it by having a family. So being family centered or being community centered, or um, no, not necessarily, because our mission sometimes can actually shift in different areas of our life. Can be also like trying to gain as many adventures as possible in traveling, So yeah, definitely that doesn't have to, unless, well, we want to make sure that anyway the job that we do doesn't drain us or doesn't drain our energy. At least gives us some excitement, and it is something that we can just attribute some meaning to it, usually to make it sustainable. But of course,
Yeah, that's actually very interesting what you're saying, because I also see that people, maybe it's also a sort of a skill that, in fact, you can find mission in very many jobs, actively find it. So recently I had a conversation with some tax advisors. It was actually at the Venture Cafe Rotterdam where
okay.
we met, and I had a conversation with two tax advisors, and we had a nice chat. So at some point I asked them, what do you find interesting about your job? And like, like typically if you do tax advisory, like you wouldn't tell that, it's very passionate, it's not a very like inspiring thing to do. But these two people, like they really had they were very enthusiastic about the job, and they basically found it's that this is a type of creative job where they treated this as a sort of a game. So there are the rules, right? There is the law, there's the tax law, and you kind of play a game. So you try to sort out the tax declaration in a way that is the most beneficial to the client. So you help them reduce their expenditure on taxes. So
Mm.
in a way, you help them to reduce their costs. So you help them, and it's a sort of a game. That's how they treated this, and like they really found it really a
Yeah, they
creative
were enthusiasts.
type of job. And I would never think that you can find something creative about the tax advisory, but they were really hyped to do this.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, at the end of the day, this is like trying to see what is happening out there, and like what are the things that really make us feel alive. This is like solving problem, connecting. Apparently, for them, this is like something extremely. They seem to be like very driven. That's the really good thing. One important aspect, however, always like about job that I want to tackle and still like that it is about, it's like aside from having a mission or anything, is like the type of approach that we're having aside from sending resume. Why am I saying that? Actually, I wanna bring a little story if I can. Something that happened at Venture Cafe. I met this guy. He's actually a very smart person. He's a senior manager, engineer at Tesla in Tilburg. Studied like at Columbia University. He's very inspiring person. I had the chance to have a conversation. We were talking about job hunting. What was funny about that is that he actually treats the part of sending resume, all of that, the process, let's say, like the traditional process, as dating on Tinder. In the sense of when you send a resume, is like there is just a profile that can be swiped very quickly, and it's like what is happening like on Tinder, for example, when you do like the dating app, and what is actually was comparing standing out in the crowd, no, from the crowd, is actually like a person that goes up to the other person and take the courage. And with that is say that what happened at Tesla, there was a guy driving for 8 hours from Germany without any job appointment or any interview appointment. And yeah, right there, and basically say that he knows how to do or how to solve certain situation better. They had a conversation at the time, and well, they basically got the job without any resume or anything like that. So okay, this is like a very extreme story. So we surely don't need to necessarily drive for 8 hours in another country and tell Tesla how to do better. This is like a very unique, I'd say. But the point of this situation is now there are different strategy to actually find a job or to stick out from the crowd. Direct message the person, the HR person, give people a call, study the job. Like let's not focus on the requirement, because those requirements that we see, you need to have at least 3 to 5 years, 6 years of experience plus all of that. I don't think it's something that we should look at. And yes.
Yeah, it's actually also that my observation is that at LinkedIn and some of these other big platforms, it's also that you basically fill in a template. If you want to post a job offer, they kind of tell you how to do it, and like you can even use the template, so you don't even have to if you say data scientist, they will basically make a proposal, like a proposed a template with all the requirements already there. So, a lazy way of posting job offers is basically to just tweak something in that offer. So I'm guessing that a lot of job offers are created like this. So they basically are created from these templates by just rewriting them a little bit. So
Yeah.
this is something that, it doesn't even have to be close to the reality of what they're looking for. It's just something that is so standard that it's always put out there, and that the same list of requirements, but they are not necessarily, they don't correspond to what is really on the offer.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're totally right. It's quite outrageous indeed in this sense. That's why I really welcome, for example, in this case, our listeners like not to get anxiety when we look at the not the job description, the requirements. bypass that part. Let's give a call and actually, okay, let's go to the basics. What is a job description? Why there is a job out there? The basics is that very luckily the company needs to solve a problem or needs new opportunities. So they need resources, as they need like financial resource. They need human resource. Here's the thing: who else better than you guys can actually solve problems? I mean, after going through the entire PhD journey, I think this is like um, quite remarkable. And by giving a call to them, I know that that creates some, it is uncomfortable, it makes you feel uneasy, but it is a way for you to actually understand more about the job, why there is a job opening, what are you trying to solve, what is the main problem that you want to get around, and how can I help you? You know, this is like that goes through these sending a resume or writing your let's say the motivational letter, all the things that you're capable to do. Thank you, Raimondas. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I really appreciate this conversation. Let's say,
Nice.
please go on, please go on.
Yeah, no. So what I was trying to say is like it's important to, at the end of the day, applying for jobs is nothing else than trying to give value. We need to have like a proper value based approach. We want to understand why there is a job out there and how we can actually bring value to them. And that's why it is important to know to understand our strength, our weaknesses. It is important to understand what is that we fight for, and how we can actually bring our uniqueness to an organization that goes way beyond just a resume with the skills that we have. And yeah, that's another thing that you can do. For example, is make a video of yourself. I know they can be extremely uncomfortable, understand that, but the goal of it is giving the human resource another dimension of your personality. There is not just a piece of paper, there is not just a resume. Bring out there your voice, being in a video. You just get, remember, it is a way for you to actually start building up an emotional connection with a human resource manager.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. That's amazing. I'm just wondering now if it's possible to actually post a video in LinkedIn. I'll check it out because yeah, that might be a life-changing piece of advice. Actually, thanks so much for this. And actually, I totally agree with you with this with what you said about contacting HR and contacting people personally, because that's also what I see. People tend to spend 90% of their job search time on searching through open job offers and writing the letters and then applying, and 10% on actually networking. And then, in fact, 90% of people get the job in the end because they knew someone who knows someone, and maybe 10% get the job because they responded to the job offers. So actually, the what I mean is networking has much higher conversion rate than answering job offers, and it's just the 1 hour spent on networking has so much more output and higher probability of success, like reaching success, than 1 hour spent on reading these job offers. So that's something that a lot of, it's, I think it's important to push yourself to get over this mental barrier, because networking requires getting out of your comfort zone, and job offers, just writing the motivational letters is writing is safe in a sense that it's not a personal contact. So I think, especially for us academics, sometimes we have to push ourselves to really get out of our little network and get out there, meet new
Mm.
people who are from a different world. And I think this is sometimes a mental barrier, but it's so much worth it.
Absolutely, absolutely agree. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I understand the fact of being indeed like a sort of a mental barrier, because at the end of the day, most of the things that happen in our life that we consider problems are actually our own saboteur and our own mental barriers, those things that we believe they are impossible, and that we believe if I do that, I'm gonna be like sounding stupid, or gonna be like sounding, in a certain way. Well, while it's actually not like that. And okay, sorry, I'm just seeing Marcus.
Shall we read what Marcus is saying? So,
Absolutely,
being unique is important. There are a lot of PhDs applying for jobs, for example, soft skills or transferable skills. The question is not if you're able to solve a problem, but how. For instance, creative solution. Maybe organize a webinar on how to Corona network. Yeah, true. Yeah, there are not indeed there are not so many real life events where you can go to. I agree. Yeah, so like again, like I think
no,
Claudia's advice to actually contact HRs, maybe through LinkedIn even. That's also possible.
absolutely.
That's
Also, like,
possible at all times. But it's true. I mean, like the scope of possibilities kind of decreased in the times of the lockdown. That's true. But I have to also say that paradoxically, sometimes it's even easier to get jobs in times of the lockdown. And the reason is because normally there are like two types of professionals that are looking for jobs. One group is basically those who badly need a job because their contract is expiring or because they already like it's already expired and they really have to get income, so they have to find something. And the second group is basically people who just want to build their career and they want to think ahead and just change because they feel they stagnation and they don't really need a new job, they just want to develop and that's why they want to change. And all these people now are you know sitting at home and waiting for what happens. They feel insecure. They don't want to risk and go out there looking for jobs. So this group is inactive now. So now people who look for jobs are those that really need them. But at the same time, companies are still hiring. I mean, they get grants, they get new positions to fill, they get investments, and they still have to fill these positions. So the positions are still arriving, maybe not in such a large amounts, but at the same time, the amount of applicants also dropped to a very low number. So now, paradoxically, often is actually easier to get a job.
that's true. I got contacted by three headhunters, maybe because they're also forced to look on LinkedIn. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, surely LinkedIn is having like quite a central role. That's why I wanted to also like bring it in this conversation, because it seems like everything is revolving around the social media. And it is really good for you, Marcus, that you've been contacted by three headhunters. Um, that's good. At least like it's a matter of having some options. And so Natalia, you were saying that it is like paradoxically easier to actually finding a job because there is like a very low number of applicants. Is that
Yeah, so
right?
actually people feel insecure because like there is a crisis coming up, and it's like for many years now the market was strongly dominated by the workforce. So it was easy to find a job, like especially in like highly qualified professionals in IT or biotech, they could really dictate their conditions
Mm,
with the salaries and benefits, and they could actually change jobs like gloves because there was just a good supply of jobs. And now in the crisis, the jobs are like slowly, I mean, the supply on the market is slowly going down. So it's quite probable that the market will turn and be now dominated by employers, and so that employers can be picky and the employees have to worry now. So because it's actually this goes in cycles. It's always like 10 to 15 years when the market is either it's similar with the
yeah,
housing market. It's like either there is a cycle when the market is dominated by owners or the buyers, and it's really going back and forth. So now it's probable that this year there will be a change, and from now on it will be harder to find a job, and the employers can dictate the conditions now. So that's why people actually are now more bound to what they have and less likely to search out for new opportunities.
that's right. That's right. That's right. Well, it's going to be quite interesting to see, indeed, also like what is going to happen to the job market in a few months, in upcoming months as well, because there've been like a lot of people, let's say, fired or been let off. And that is going to be, well, there are like different opinions around that, but it seems like that a lot of people will just aggressively trying to look for job once maybe like this situation with the coronavirus is going to be over. So here and again, there is going to be really important to be creative. As also like at Marco's suggestion, creativity at the end of the day just pays off. It's always happened in the history. So there are like other platforms like Meetup, for example, and many other platforms that usually were like Eventbrite as well. They were like, and they were aiming for bringing social events. Now they're actually moved towards the online. So probably we can actually use that to have a little bit more of visibility, and who knows, just bring up there or like our worth or our contribution.
Okay, great. Do you guys also have questions? You can post your questions on the chat if you like. Okay, so let me ask you another question then that came to my mind in the meantime.
Sure.
So, because I feel like yet another problem that a lot of people looking for jobs have these days is that there is a curse of abundance as well. So there's so many different jobs, when you take a decision, okay, now I'm going to look for my first job outside academia. You sit down, browse through LinkedIn, and there is like 10,000 different types of jobs, and then you get flabbergasted because you just have no idea. There's just so many, and each one of them promises you these opportunities for growth and great working atmosphere, and it's like this brave new world. It's also
Right.
everywhere, and like pleasure everywhere. This is what the promises are, and it's really hard to choose. So it's yet another reason to feel fearful, because you also fear that you might choose wrong. So
Right.
the question is, like, this is a very hard question, like, but the question is how to choose right.
That's right. Well, here's actually what we're talking about is the paradox of optionability. The more you have, the more choices you have, the harder it is to choose at the end of the day. And on the other side, who you are, maybe like being a person with a lot of skills, so you have like a multi potentiality. You're a person that can actually go and it is being chosen by different organization, so you have like so much that you can bring there. And the best way to do, as I was saying at the beginning, is having clarity. As like somebody like Tony Robbins says, although I'm not a big fan of him, but there is this bit that I love it, which is clarity is power. Why is that? Because if you have a clear idea at 360 degrees what is important for you, the easier it is to make a choice, to make a decision. Actually, even before making a choice, okay, what happens is that you're gonna have most likely an interview, right? So there is a part of the interview where you can ask question, and there is the moment that you need to tackle what is important for you and how is the organization give you that. So that's the best advice that I can give in general. And in general, I mean, every time, anytime we want to make a decision, the clearer we are, the better it is. Although, what happens is that sometimes we need to experience things. That's we don't have every time all the answer within ourselves. We can imagine, we can simulate in our mind how a scenario could be, but at the same time, until we don't live some certain experience, we don't really know. Funny hard to translate my PhD skills into an industry job description. I find this job description very old-fashioned. I can't put my skills in a single description. How to find a job description that fits the diversity of our PhD skills? Beautiful. Very well. Job description. I wouldn't really look at the job description at all, Marcus, and I'll tell you more about that and what I mean. I mean that hardly 50%, 40% of the job advertisement are not actually out there on LinkedIn. What I actually would recommend in this scenario is find a company, an organization that under your point of view, to your current understanding of it, inspires you, makes you feel excited, or the product of this company makes you feel excited, and call them, tell them what you can do, tell them about the PhD, and see if you can actually could contribute to their growth or to solve certain problems, because we cannot be dependent from the market or from the sorry, we cannot depend from the job description, otherwise it's like being controlled. We gotta step up and we gotta like play the game with different rules. So the best thing I would really suggest you is, your skills are hardly transferable. The job description are very old fashioned. I totally agree with you, unfortunately. So Cole, it's like almost having a personal brand about
Yeah,
yourself.
I couldn't agree more with Claudio, and I think there is also one more problem associated with answering these job offers online, especially if you feel if you feel that it's that's a good advice indeed, very good.
Thank you.
And so there is also one more issue that I see. It's also that if you apply through this like open solicitaties, then often big companies especially, they get like hundreds of applicants for one position, and they often use this software to basically filter out a number of applicants.
Biometrics, I think, is one of that. This
Yeah.
software based on artificial intelligence. It's
And
yeah,
it's not very intelligent software. So they basically look into these keywords, and this is just a very very basic comparison of the text and the amount of keywords. So basically people who know the rules of the game usually win this game, and if you are a person who is really competent and just writes the things as they are and describes themselves faithfully, sometimes you are sorted out just because the algorithm doesn't like your application. And this
yeah,
actually, you can lose a lot of time applying. That's just one more reason to actually do exactly what Claudio advised. So really go personal and go straight to the
yeah,
company.
absolutely. And for company, I don't even mean the human resource department. I would just bypass that. Just go directly, like text directly the departments that you're interested. I don't know if it's like research and development, sales, whatever it is, and see who's managing their department, and yeah, send a message. And sorry, before I forget, that very 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 important, let's not just say how or what we can help the company, but our brain is hardly like is hardwired for searching meaning out of a thing. So let's explain why. As also Simon Sinek say, start with why. For companies, it applies with us to us as well. Why do we want to apply for like contribute to that company specifically, and why they should choose us? It's good to give reason beforehand, before everything. Then we can say what we're gonna do and how. That's, well, we're offering a service as a job, so that's yeah, mainly the thing.
Yeah, yeah. Again, like hard not to agree with you. Like it's all really wise what you're saying, and totally, I'm on the same page here. Like, okay, so another question that came to my mind is, do you spot some common mistakes that people normally do when applying for jobs?
Yeah, just write it down, all the things that has been happening in their life in the a cover letter, like my name is, and I have this experience, that experience. Well, it's boring. It doesn't stick out. It's meaningless. I mean, it is important, of course, to maybe highlight some of the most significant and relevant to the job experience or skills. That is okay. But again, write down. Let's make your application employer centered. Imagine you're actually talking to them, telling them how you're solving the problem, or how you what you bring in, what you think you bring in the company. Just a long page of experience or skills, it's not enough, for sure.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree. It's just sometimes what the problem is sometimes for applicants when they are interested in a position is that they actually want to adhere to this rule and motivate well why they want to go for particular employer or particular team. But sometimes they have hard time finding information because if the company is famous like Tesla, you have so much information on the media, you can make up like a paragraph of text. Okay, this is what I find cool about you, so I really want to join your team, and this is what I can bring. But if you apply for a company that has like 50 to 100 employees and they are nowhere on the media, they are not in the public space and public opinion at all, then it's really hard to really make it up. So all the information you have is basically Crunchbase and sometimes Wikipedia if you're lucky, but most often not, and maybe LinkedIn page. But it's really hard to come up with something that can persuade the employer that you really aim for this particular team. So
Yeah, sure. This is like some of the limits, of course. That is actually what is really hard to overcome. But as I said before, at the end of every job description or like a job ads, there is always something written like, for more information, send the email at or call. There is a number there. So as I said before, it's always good to call just for information and just to make sure what we want to know more about that. Yeah.
yeah, that's a good advice. Actually, that's a very good advice because I had a period of time after my contract expired when I was also applying for jobs, and actually I was ignoring those. I have to confess that I was ignoring those contact numbers, and I was actually going straight to application without actually calling. And I think, yeah, this is a good piece of advice because this is, I think most people take this as like an emergency situation. So if you have emergency, okay, you just don't know how to apply or you didn't really understand some part of the job offer, then you should call. Uh,
Right.
yeah, I agree with you. This is just one more way of making personal contact. So
Other than that, for sure, and on top of that, there is the entire part of the interview. I mean, if you succeed um, during the first part, so you're actually gonna have the interview. That's something that actually I've been helping like a few people to go through and actually to succeed and going, like get a job. And there is like mainly has to deal with like communication skills, all that. But there are like some basics that can be easily, like paid attention to. For example, making eye contact. Like, sometimes there are those interview that last for like 40 minutes, but the employer already know during the first 90 seconds if the candidate is gonna succeed or not. 67% of that is due to uh, eye contacts, dressing code, body language. So of course there are certain factors, certain elements belonging to the entire, like the way that we portray ourselves. They, yeah, there are like some mistake, unfortunately, but there will require some deeper, let's say, training. But however, like smile, be calm, and eye contact all the time. Ask questions. Very important. It's important to ask questions. Let's not be the target that just receive all the questions, but especially let's ask the question as much as possible. This is extremely important, and it is important during the interview. Again, as I said before, to give them the feeling that we are already working with them. How do you do that? Ask question about the problem that they want to solve. So this position is here. Why is it here? Why is it open? What are you trying to solve? Try to bring out as many information as possible, because in the moment that you ask question is the moment that you start leading the conversation. Who asks question is who actually lead the conversation. This is like a general rule. So it'd be good if you can do that during an interview.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, actually, this is a very good advice. It's also that in big companies sometimes they have a few different HR like they have a few different interviews, so it's not always possible. Also, in my experience, because I had those interviews myself, and sometimes you talk to the HR like human resources, and they don't really know about the team and the problems they are solving. They just they only know about what how to build a team, like personality wise, so that people
Mm.
actually work with each other well, and not necessarily about the problem. And sometimes you talk to a technical person in the team, and then you can only talk about the problem. So it's also, I think, good to be aware of that and also adjust to the conversation, because it's not always that you have like everything in one in the interview, but sometimes it's actually split. But it totally agreed. And Claudia, could you just tell us like a little bit about what you are doing at the moment, and what are your, like, because you do a lot of amazing things. So like I would like to ask you more about that, because I'm
Yeah,
curious. So because
yeah.
you have like a really broad range of activities. So I'm curious about this.
What I'm doing at the moment. Okay, so at the moment, let's say that I've been trying to readjust myself due to the situation with the coronavirus. Why is that? Because I wasn't working online. I usually, well, we met like during a business event, like in Rotterdam Venture Cafe, and that was like the main, let's say, the actually events where I used to go to network and like seek for opportunities and collaboration. So now what I'm doing, well, first of all, I'm starting my own podcast as well really soon, and I'm building a workshop, a webinar that I will give for free as well, which is all about like personal development for leaders or like team leaders or founders that they want to improve their soft skills. So they're like, different modules where people are going to start like defining their, as I said before, strength, weaknesses, understanding more about themselves, vision, try to have like a proper strategy. And then we're going to go on with emotional intelligence, and then from emotional intelligence we're going to tackle communication in terms of negotiation, coaching, like asking from curiosity, listening, all that. And then moving on to actually team building until we define a culture. And I am helping like a couple of teams right now with this process, and also like to define their processes within the team culture wise. So basically, yeah, coaching, trying to give as much value as possible for free, writing articles, putting posts. So yeah, this is like the main thing that I'm doing. Well, let's say that I'm also like starting some probably like some collaboration soon, and yeah, we'll see how it goes like from now to the next few months.
Yeah,
So
that sounds really amazing. It's so necessary what you're doing, because I can definitely, I see that this discrepancy between like hard skills and soft skills, and how leaders are often, yeah, that basically being promoted from specialists. Like we talked about it before in this
yeah,
conversation, but I can see that there are so many areas of industry where what you do is really necessary, and yeah, it's really exciting. I hope to
fantastic.
hear about it more often. Maybe you should write a book about this. I would really like to read your book if you ever decide to put it.
Absolutely, yeah. It is in my 10 years plan. So writing a book, it is just up there. But yeah, right now just let's say practicing with articles, and I also want to gain like even more experience and just go out there. I really want to have like a lot of cases that I can work on, and it's quite interesting actually. And it's quite hard, as I said beginning, like to go through the ego of a lot of people, because they always associate these soft skills to their personality,
Mhm.
and that's not it. That is not how it actually works. It's just another skill that is trainable. But yeah, we're gonna try to train as many people as possible to improve the life of yeah, employees and whatsoever.
That's great. Okay, so guys, if you still have questions for Claudio, please ask now, because we are slowly coming to the end of this webinar. So you have a chance now to ask questions. And otherwise, you can find Claudio on LinkedIn. So I strongly encourage you to contact each other after this webinar. And I okay, I'm still waiting. Yeah, I also
Right.
think. Thank you, Stein, for your kind words.
Thank you, Sain. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree. I was really hyped for this episode, and I'm very satisfied with what we got here. Really, a lot of
Thank you.
very good content from Claudio. Okay, so guys, if you don't have any follow up questions, yeah, I agree. It's super.
Thank you, Ali.
Okay,
I appreciate that.
perfect. Thank you so much, guys, for attending. And again, if you have further questions, then please find Claudio on LinkedIn.
Thank you,
And
Marcus.
let's hope that we meet with you guys at some other occasion. And I wish you all the best, Claudio. I would like to see you more in the public space, and I would like to see you, like
Absolutely. We can stay in touch for sure. And
yeah, and I hope like more and more companies will actually realize that they need some expert like you. Okay, thank you so much for attending, and have a nice evening, guys.
thank you very much. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Bye.
Bye bye.